Good evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of the TheCaliEffect. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 decks that completely dominated their format or had some huge impact on the type of game we play or just helped dominate a format halfway. It doesn't matter. Just 5 really, really overpowered decks. We're going to be talking about Yata Garasu Lockdown. Now, Yata Garasu Lockdown relied on a really bad combo that would happen right about now because it requires so much setup. A good player will just wreck it before it even happens. It required you to have Chaos Emperor Dragon in hand and Sangan or Witch of the Black Forest face up on the field prior. So basically what you would do, you would summon Chaos Emperor Dragon. Chaos Emperor Dragon pays 1,000, blows up the whole field. Sangan or Witch of the Black Forest's effect would activate and it would search you Yata Garasu. Now, Yata Garasu you would summon, because I'm assuming you didn't summon your Witch of Black Forest or Sangan. You would summon, and then you would attack your opponent with Yata Garasu. They won't be able to draw, which essentially means they'll have to pass their turn since they have no cards in hand. Then you keep summoning Yata and attacking with Yata, packing for 200 life points until the game is over. And that's basically how the Yata lock worked. It was a very dominant deck, and it's a huge reason why our ban list is why it is today. It's just so good. It was so good for its time. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will just find a way to use Yata or to get over Yata, or Dragon Rulers will still exist because Dragon Rulers say, yeah, that's nice with a 200 bird on the field. I'm just gonna summon my rulers. Next would be Dino Rabbit. Now, Dino Rabbit makes this list because it was a very unique deck. It was very linear. It only focused on one thing, Lagia with 5 back row. And anytime you get a monster that can negate effects, as well as spell and trap cards that can negate everything else you do, you win. Now, even when it did get limited to 2, players found success in Dino Rabbit mainly because you didn't need 3 in the first place. 3 was just for consistency. You would only normally use 2. And then it had an OTK with Leviair that just didn't that didn't help the deck. Dino Rabbit is one of those special cases just because it had the raw power and the sheer ability to stop everything your opponent does. It was a very dominant deck for its time. Next, we're going to be talking about the infamous Teleport Dark Arm. Now, this deck ran formats. I can't even tell you how many formats it ran. I can't even remember. But this deck completely ran formats. It was nothing that anybody else can do. It was you played Teleport Dark Arm or practically you lost. And that's basically how it worked. Now, how Teleport Dark Arm works, I hope I don't have to tell you about Dino Rabbit though, because it was very simple. How Teleport Dark Arm works is that you use your elemental heroes, which your only elemental hero would be Stratos, your destiny heroes, which typically your only destiny hero is Malicious, your psychic monsters, which again is probably only Krebins, to make a combination of synchro monsters. For example, Stratos for Malicious gets de-drawed, emergency teleport Krebins, special summon Malicious, and granted, now you have a Stardust. Now, since this deck had so much synergy and so much ability to put Darks in the graveyard and manage them, Dark Arm Dragon was put in there and often used to create OTKs where your opponent cannot stop. This was definitely the strongest deck of any type of format because, like I said, you played this deck or you lost. There wasn't any winning outside of Teleport Dark Arm. Next is going to be Dragon Rulers. Now, it would be interesting to see how Dragon Rulers would play against Teleport Dark Arm, both in this day and age. And I might want to do a video on Dragon Rulers versus Teledad. I'm probably leaning more towards Dragon Rulers because Big Eye is a card, but then Solemn is a card, so it's up in the air. But Dragon Rulers are if not the first, the second most dominant deck in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! The only reason why they cannot be the first, or why you would put them as the second, is because Teleport Dark Arm ran a whole format, whereas Dragon Rulers, they had to share some of the room with the deck we're going to be talking about next. Dragon Rulers are extremely simple. You discard a corresponding dragon, so if I wanted to summon Blaster from my deck, I discard Burner, and I special summon Blaster from my deck. Then, if I wanted to, I can discard Stream and another dragon to special summon Tidal from my deck. That's 2 free special summons. Now, guess what? We're going to go into Draco Sack. Draco Sack would detach, and I still have it normal summoned. I still can special summon some more. I can activate the Dragon Ruler's effect monsters in my graveyard. Then at the end phase, I'm going to Super Rejuvenation. Because I discarded so many dragons from my deck, I'm going to draw this many cards. Just because this deck had so much sheer draw power, so much consistency, and it was just almost one of the impossible decks to beat. It had one huge weakness, but it was so easy for this deck to get over its weakness through Blaster's effect. It didn't even matter. This is probably one of the most dominant decks of all time in Yu-Gi-Oh history, right beside Teleport Dark Army. The last deck was actually used to counter Dragon Rulers, but if it had its own format with Spellbook of Judgment at full power, I'm pretty sure it would run its own format. Now, Spellbook Prophecy is practically based around this little guy right here, Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, who is searched by Spellbook of Secrets, and in turn searches you any Spellbook card from your deck. When they did have Spellbook of Judgment Day, they used to use a card called Spellbook Starhawk, which adds counters and counters and counters on itself, and gives all your spellcaster monsters 100 attack for each card. Now that might not sound like much, but 2 Starhawks with about 10 counters each, even Little Boy Magician of Prophecy is 2,500. Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer is nothing less of a monster. And keep in mind, they have Spellbook of Wisdom to protect you, Spellbook of Fate to get over all of your opposing threats, and then Spellbook of Judgment Day to continuously plus in your hand. This deck would have been one of the most dominant decks of a format had Dragon Rulers not existed. I think if they had both their separate formats, they would rule all, undoubtedly, and nothing else would stop them. But that's the top 5, or I'm sorry, not top 5. There's a couple other decks that I didn't mention, like T-Hero and Cyberstein, just a couple other decks that I just did not mention. They are still honorable mentions, and if you guys would like to comment some of the decks that just dominated formats, feel free to go ahead. But thank you guys for watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.